people are slowly starting to gather in the hall, and the crowd is getting bigger and bigger. Those present admire how charming the melody performed by the musicians is. As time goes by, even though the event has already begun, there are still more people. Their eyes suddenly stop on a man doing amazing things. Suddenly, the glasses, standing in a pyramid, begin to fill with alcohol. The girl, surrounded by spectators, says that it is time to drink because one day they will all die, and they should live their lives without regrets. Some of these spectators looked at the girl with disapproval, not understanding her behavior. These same people even thought that she was behaving as if this was her second life. Hearing their dialogues, this girl immediately rushed to correct them, because in fact this was her 20th life. Surrounded by all these spectators was the Marquis's youngest daughter, Ribert Bernadette, who had just turned 20 years old. It was the novel Leona's Misfortunes, famous for its sweet and refreshing romance. In this work, Roberta was a villain who interfered with the main characters. But that didn't mean she was actually an evil person. In fact, a little earlier she was only a reader of this novel. It all happened when she was reading a scene in which the villain died late at night. While reading, she found it funny how the main characters mercilessly killed the villain. But after she fell asleep, she opened her eyes and realized that she was in the body of this evil girl. That day, when she woke up, she couldn't understand at all what was happening. A maid quickly ran to her, informing her that the main character, Leona's cat, was not breathing. The same maid suddenly declared Roberta guilty, slowly leading away the crying Leona. She justified this by saying that the girl was angry that her fiancé proposed to her friend. While the supposedly guilty woman was running after her friend, something even stranger began to happen. Gradually, everyone present in the hall began to grimace in pain. After a few seconds, Roberta turned around and noticed that the hall was filled with the lifeless bodies of maids. That day, everything happened in a blur, although the girl didn't even have time to come to her senses. It didn't take long before the guilty party was already awaiting her own execution. The man callously asked the girl to raise her head. He began to tell how the criminal held a grudge against the groom for proposing to her friend, which is why he brutally killed Leona's cat and then poisoned an innocent lady at a tea party. The guy's final words were that the girl was sentenced to death. The last thing the culprit saw was the face of her crying friend. By the time Leona cried out her name, it was too late and the execution was complete. That's how Roberta died, knowing that it would be better this way, and that was the end. She finishes remembering her very first death, realizing that this is already the 20th time. In her first life, she was caught red-handed committing all sorts of crimes. Then the tea at a tea party she attended was poisoned. And then, even if she stayed home on purpose, it was proven that she ordered the murder. It all went on and on. They even went so far as to claim that she had committed murder and escaped. In the end, she was always sentenced to death, even though she couldn't kill even an insect, let alone a cat or a person. She spoke most of her thoughts out loud, realizing that in the end, she would be sentenced to death again. Some women around her condemned her, calling her shameless. They understood perfectly well that it was not even worth talking to someone like that. Roberta suddenly screams that she will die anyway, so she will do whatever she wants. A worried Leona suddenly approaches her, asking her to stop. She says sadly that people might misunderstand her friend. Suddenly, Roberta asks if she sees that everyone present is calmly calling her names. She wonders if she is scared that they are now seen together. Despite the fact that she had allegedly caused pain to her friend for 20 lifetimes, she stubbornly remained by her side. Leona always tried to justify the actually innocent Bernadette in every possible way. But each time her words remained unheard, and the execution was still carried out. People whispered behind their backs, saying that Leona was a poor thing who was almost killed, but she still believed in this evil girl. Leona asks her friend to go with her, because it is obvious that she has been drunk for a long time. The one standing opposite asks her to go first, after which she says that she wants to have some more fun. Lost in thought, she notices that she is in an incredibly good mood today. Roberta promises her friend that she will just have a little more drink and then leave. This time she didn't intend to do anything either, but even so, Leona suffered because of her. The girl smiles slightly, waving goodbye to her departing friend. She knew that now, if she left, something good would happen. As Leona was leaving the hall, she suddenly ran into some tall guy. Roberta knew that now her friend had to meet a man who would protect her from her own friend. The girl notices their collision and turns around, finally feeling relieved. Music is playing in the hall, everyone is dancing, while Roberta heads somewhere, simultaneously finishing another bottle. Not seeing the man walking next to her, she suddenly collides with him. The bottle falls out of her hands with a loud clang, after which it begins to roll somewhere. Roberta desperately crawls after her, trying to catch up with the unfinished portion of alcohol. The bottle finally stops at someone's feet that remind her of someone. The girl raises her head and notices a tall guy in front of her. The voice asking if she was okay sounded very familiar to her. The stranger lifts the girl up in front of him, after which he notices that she is apparently drunk. Roberta smiles, asking what he's talking about, then states that she's drunk as a sober person. After a while, the guy carefully straightens his shirt as beads of sweat slowly drip off him. Clothes are scattered everywhere, and not far from him, Roberta is lying on the bed. The girl slowly opens her eyes and gradually regains consciousness. She suddenly jumps up, screaming, and the stranger declares that she must have gone crazy. Roberta sees that same guy in front of her and anxiety begins to overwhelm her. She looks at him questioningly, becoming more and more awake with each passing second. Raising her voice sharply, she asks fearfully who he even is. The girl asks him not to come closer, and he realizes that she doesn't remember anything. He says that he didn't touch her at all and she undressed herself. The guy asks her to remember on her own what she did earlier in the evening. She tries to start remembering from the moment when this stranger approached her, assuming that she was drunk. Then she calmly grinned and said that the glasses looked like they were sober. The guy tried to lift her up, asking where her carriage was because she couldn't even walk normally, and she asked him to let him go. Roberta, having examined him, called the stranger a giraffe because of his height. She suddenly asked why the earth was spinning, after which she called the mansion of poor quality. She screamed that she needed to get out of there as soon as possible. The girl asked him for help, looking pitifully into his eyes. She suddenly screamed that she really didn't want to die in agony again. Hearing these words, the stranger quickly took her into his strong arms. He asked the girl in all seriousness where she wanted to go. She asked angrily what he was even asking about now. Without lowering her tone, she said that she needed to go out, and he quickly headed for the door. The guests looked at them, leaving in shock, not understanding at all what had just happened. Remembering this story, Roberta sits awkwardly on the bed, looking away, and then asks for forgiveness. She suddenly says that she doesn't even understand what happened to her clothes. The guy has to repeat that he in no way undressed her with his own hands. She recalls that he said earlier that she herself decided to undress. Roberta once again recalls the recent events when she finally managed to leave the mansion. Then the girl started saying that she was too hot, and that maybe this time she would burn alive. The guy asked her name because he had to find her carriage. In response to his questions, she asked why he needed to know the name of a girl who was destined to die. Without giving him a chance to get a word in, she said that since he had asked politely, she would tell him anyway. Turning around, the girl said that her name was Roberta Bernadette. The stranger looked at her, trying to remember the information he had just heard. He said that in that case, he urgently needed to go and find a coachman. The guy suddenly decided to turn around and noticed that the girl had climbed into the fountain. She talked about how she had just escaped from a crappy mansion, and now she was hot. The girl put her hand in the water and asked herself what kind of situation this was. She suddenly announced in a depressed tone that she had been fed up to the brim for a long time. Roberta tried to convince herself that she could survive this time. Suddenly, she felt unbearably hot again, despite the fact that she was already in the water. The guy decided to ask why she was hot if it was quite cool outside. He suddenly invited her to take his hand and leave this place together. The stranger, staring at her, slowly extended his hand to her. After thinking for a bit, the girl suddenly decided to pull him towards her into the fountain. She said she never really understood the romantic genre. Roberta gently placed her palm on his reddened cheek. She declared that he was her type, then moved closer and kissed him. Remembering what happened, the girl apologizes, and he says that he had to stop her from undressing in the garden with fountains, and then drag her all the way to the castle. She realizes that she has caused a great commotion at the ball, and then asks where she is. The stranger calmly informs her that she is in the castle of Cygnus. The owner of this castle, the Grand Duke of the Mutant Empire, Gerald Cygnus, has power comparable to that of an emperor and is also the main character of the novel Leona's Misfortunes. This was the man who would send her to execution to protect his beloved Leona. The girl lowers her gaze to the floor, digesting the information she has received. She asks with concern if he is Gerald's subordinate. Roberta asks if she will be executed for causing trouble. The girl wonders if this time there will be a guillotine, a gallows, or if she will simply be shot. Suddenly, a guy approaches her, suggesting that all these thoughts are frightening. He says he has no idea what she's so afraid of. Slowly removing his mask, he tells her that she shouldn't do that. The guy introduces himself as Gerald Cygnus, after which he promises that he will never let her die. The girl looks at him in shock, realizing that she has fallen into the hands of her enemy. She asks worriedly why he is here, and he asks why he can't be in his house. Suddenly, she says that if everything had gone according to plan, he would have met Leona at the door to the ball. Gerald asks if she's talking about the girl he bumped into at the entrance. Roberta wonders what is going on in her life right now. He says he doesn't understand what this is all about, but now he wants to know about her, not about anyone else. The guy is seriously interested in who Roberta Bernadette is, whom she spoke about a little earlier. She says that she is sure that he is interested in listening to her, since she has been talking nonsense for a long time. Suddenly, she adds that there is nothing special about her, so there is essentially no need for this. She says that she is just a friend of the young lady Diamond Leona. The girl remarks that she is just a pebble that His Excellency can kick, and she is just a very ordinary girl. She reports that she was very drunk, after which she states that it is time for her to go. The guy notices that she speaks just like a character from a book. He says that ordinary people don't start talking about their friends when they talk about themselves. Gerald reports that a person thinks for himself, experiences emotions and sensations, and this response is not very similar to a human one. She suddenly says that she knows absolutely none of the above. The girl did not understand whether she could be in such a place and experience these emotions. She asks if all these feelings belong to her at all. Roberta says that she is very confused, and then suddenly starts scratching her neck. She reports that she is scared out of her mind as the guy starts to approach her. He grabs her arm to stop her from continuing to scratch her neck. The guy asks with concern if these actions are causing her pain. She repeats that she is incredibly scared because of what is happening and because of the feeling of the unknown. Gerald says that if she is truly scared, he will give her a chance to find out. He tells her that he wants to let her know that these feelings and emotions actually belong to her. A small group of girls excitedly ask if Leona is okay. They say that this time the girl almost died, and they seem to say that she drank poisoned tea at a party. The group notes that it is a great fortune to have the Grand Duke on their side. They say that if it weren't for him, Leona would have been dead long ago. The girls turn around and say that it's all because of her evil friend. Roberta sees before her the angry looks that were directed at her. Suddenly, she opens her eyes and looks at the ceiling in shock, realizing that it was just a dream. A maid approaches her, noticing that her mistress has finally woken up. The girl reports that His Excellency is already waiting for her downstairs. In fact, something crazy happened between them last night. This happened after Gerald promised to help her make sure that she was really real. Then she stood there, looking into his eyes, simultaneously digesting all her thoughts. The girl suddenly grabbed the guy standing in front of her by the shirt, pulled him towards her and kissed him. Gerald didn't push her away, and eventually things went too far. Roberta suddenly starts screaming that she has gone crazy, after which she begins to ask herself why she did it. As she gets dressed and heads down the corridor, she thinks about how ridiculous this is. She realizes that she slept with the main character while being a villain. A guy was waiting for her at the table, telling her that he wanted to wait until she woke up, but he had too much to do. The girl could not even imagine what would happen to her, because no matter what she did in her previous 19 lives, she was always falsely accused and killed. She assumes that in this life she will die again from an absurd false accusation. But she also doesn't reject the idea that she has found a way to survive, and yet she was not sure whether she should try to push the Duke away. Gerald suddenly grins and remarks that the dress suits her. He says he chose it carefully, and Sir Ori gave him good advice. The guy says that he actually wanted her to choose herself, but didn't want to wake her up, and then asks if she likes it. She knew that such a decision could not be made impulsively, because it could become her path to survival or a prelude to an even more terrible path. The girl decides that she shouldn't get ahead of herself for now, and there will be absolutely no romantic atmosphere now. She suddenly declares that she's not really interested in dresses and all that. Roberta says that she doesn't like noise and prefers to stay at home, so she's not interested in going out dresses, after which the Duke remarks that he thought she was enjoying herself yesterday. When asked what she likes, she says that she prefers things that cannot be obtained through wealth or power. She says she likes positive thinking, simplicity, physical and mental health. The guy recalls the events of the past day and thinks that she looks like she enjoys luxury, pleasure, excessive alcohol consumption, and self-destruction. Roberta begs him not to try to attract her with power and wealth by giving her land or the sea. She mentally apologizes to those present, realizing that she will have to continue to talk nonsense. The girl says that this will make the animals living with them unhappy. She asks what's on the menu today, saying that the dish looks like it might give her a boost of energy. Roberta realizes that she needs to stall for time with empty chatter until they separate. Gerald reports that it is bread made from freshly squeezed milk and sea turtle soup. There is an awkward silence, and the guy covers his mouth with his hand, holding back his laughter. The girl looks at him indignantly, amazed by such a coincidence. He removes his hand, after which a smile appears on his face, and Roberta does not understand why the atmosphere has improved. The guy asks if he can prepare her dress for the next ball if she is not interested in them. Just in case, he asks again if she is interested in her choice of dress. Suddenly, he suggests that she doesn't like Sir Ori's taste, and the assistant's heart almost stops from shock. She suddenly screams that she loves his taste to the point of madness, and the guy concludes that she will attend the next ball. He adds that she will have to go there accompanied by his company. As she rides home in the carriage, she realizes that she's just agreed to the next meeting without thinking. The girl asks Sir Ori to tell the Duke that she will not be able to attend the next ball due to unforeseen circumstances, but he refuses her. As expected from the main character, the guy was very good at flirting with girls. She remembers the events of the previous night, as well as how tears slowly rolled down her eyes. Then the guy asked her worriedly why she was crying, hanging over her. Roberta sighs, dying of shame and covering her face with her hands. She decides that maybe he is not as heartless as she thought. The girl understood that perhaps this time she would have a chance to survive. Suddenly the carriage stops and Roberta falls on poor Sir Ori. She asks what's wrong and he says something must have happened. Outside, someone can be heard calling the woman a mean, unlucky old woman. The coachman asks if she doesn't know how many accidents happen on the roads during the rain. He angrily asks why she can't just get out of the way. The man grabs the poor old woman by the cloak and asks if she even knows whose carriage it is. Together with one of the guards, they begin to push the woman from side to side. Seeing this picture, Roberta remembers how she was falsely accused of killing Leona. She mutters under her breath that the guy will be polite now, but as soon as she falls out of favor with the Grand Duke, she will end her life the same way. She tells Sir Ori that she will get out here, but he informs her that he has been ordered to escort her safely straight home. She turns around and gives him her maddeningly angry look. The girl asks if he means to say that in order to protect a young girl, to whom the Grand Duke has a slight crush, they are harming a harmless, fragile old woman. Roberta angrily says that there are things in the world that cannot be done, no matter how much money and power they have. Slamming the door behind her, she quickly rushes towards the innocent woman. As the carriage drives away, she finally addresses the frightened old woman. She reports that the carriage has left and then asks if she is okay. The woman suddenly notices that she is a very compassionate young lady. She adds that the girl is perhaps the most compassionate of them all. The old woman asks her if she wants her to predict her future. The woman suddenly says that this is undoubtedly her interlocutor's 20th life. Roberta looks at her in surprise, not understanding how she knew about her reincarnation. She jumps back slightly, frightened, asking how she managed to figure this out. The old woman says that if in her 20th life the girl does not put everything in its place, the world will be destroyed. She insistently asks the bewildered Roberta to remember her words. The girl asks worriedly whether Leona's world of misfortune will be destroyed. Coming to her senses, she realizes that the old woman is no longer in the same place where she was before. Suddenly, a familiar loud scream is heard nearby, distracting her from her thoughts. It was a terribly agitated Claire, Roberta's personal servant. The woman who came running asks why the girl came only now, after which she says that she was very concerned about her location. Roberta asks for forgiveness, and the maid is surprised that she is apologizing to her. Claire says that Lady Diamond has been waiting for her since the morning, and she is also very worried. She is very insistent that her mistress hurry home. Suddenly, Roberta stops her and says that she wants to ask her something because she knows that she likes novels. She wonders what she thinks it means that the book world will be destroyed. Claire asks, in surprise, if this means the main characters will die. Suddenly, a familiar, gentle voice is heard calling one of the girls. Someone's bandaged arm slowly rises, trying to wave. A wounded Leona asks worriedly what took her friend so long. Suddenly, a black horse rushes past her at breakneck speed. The maid and Roberta look at what has happened in fear, not yet fully understanding what is happening around them. Leona, not having time to understand anything, smiles and looks questioningly at those who have just arrived. She says that she was worried, and then turns around and sees the same horse already turned towards her. Roberta suddenly rushes towards her friend, screaming in concern. She sees Lady Diamond in front of her, with black horses rushing towards her at great speed. Blood spreads across the asphalt, and Roberta looks at the scene in fear. People start to gather around, asking what's going on. The girl rushes to her friend's side as passers-by wonder why the horses suddenly went berserk. Roberta asks the girl, who is shocked to death, if she is okay. Leona turns towards her friend in fear, trying to find the words. She suddenly falls to her knees and begs her for any kind of help. The girl admits that she has actually had strange sensations since last night. She was calmly walking down the street when suddenly a huge statue broke right next to her. It left a scratch on her cheek, but fortunately not a very deep one. The maids immediately rushed to her, asking if everything was okay. After some time, Leona lay peacefully on the bed, trying to fall asleep. She noticed something very bright and terrible and assumed that it was a typhoon. Suddenly, the glass breaks and all the pieces fall right on her. In the morning, she was informed that even after checking the estate's security, everything was fine outside, and besides, there had been no typhoon the previous night. That same day, the maid suggested that she stay at home because it was all too strange and sinister. Leona asked the maid not to worry and said that she would come safe and sound. She smiled a little sadly and promised this to her interlocutor. Claire and Roberta suddenly start shouting at her that they know this phrase, and the protagonist of the novel says it before his death, so she almost really died. They excitedly ask the girl, who doesn't understand anything, to go home right now. Leona reports that these are all wounds from the house, and Roberta realizes that the problem is not in the place at all. The girl suddenly becomes gloomy, thinking about what is happening to her now. She says that she actually ran away from home in the morning because she was very scared, but it turned out that the same thing was happening outside too. Suddenly, Leona excitedly asks if her friend thinks she is cursed. Roberta looks at her equally worried interlocutor with fear. Each of them ask themselves the important question of what they should do now. Bernadette remembers the old woman's words that if she doesn't put everything in its place in her 20th life, the world will be destroyed. She understands that she must push the Duke away at all costs. Roberta suddenly asks her friend how she would react if she suddenly said that she has a soulmate. She says that before meeting her, this soulmate made a mistake and slept with her friend. The girl says that as soon as he meets her friend, he will forget about the one he slept with. Leona's face darkens, and she suddenly says that this sounds extremely disgusting. Roberta asks fearfully why, because it only happened once, and that was before meeting her. She wonders what if this man loves her incredibly much, and what if she says that if she doesn't get together with him, she will die. She asks if she means to say that she has to date a man she doesn't love in order to stay alive. Leona asks how the man feels when he realizes he is being used, how her friend feels when she looks at them, and how she would feel. She sadly says that people's hearts cannot be used like this. Diamond asks curiously what kind of romance novel this is, and Claire picks up the idea with this question. Roberta does not answer their question, becoming more and more immersed in her thoughts. She remembers how in one of her past lives Leona secretly came to her without telling the Duke. The girl wanted to get at least a glance from her friend, but she only got ignored. Roberta asked her friend to leave and said that she shouldn't contact her because it was dangerous. She revealed that she was a sinner who had tried to kill Leona, and Leona suddenly screamed that she knew it was not so. Tears began to well up in her eyes, and she insisted that this was not so. Roberta suddenly says that she didn't think it would be easy to convince her. She understands that something needs to be done, and she must not find out about what happened last night. Leona suddenly asks if her friend is worried about her now. A little surprised, the girl says that of course that is how it is. Having heard the answer to her question, she begins to look quite happy. At first, Roberta is surprised by this, but then she understands why her friend is so surprised. Previously, in the eyes of her friend, Roberta was insanely majestic and strict. Claire suddenly says that she looked at the girl in a completely new way, and before she looked like a villain, but she was wrong. Roberta confidently says that she was really worried, which is why she tells Leona this. She asks her friend not to approach the noble girls of the Mutant Empire. The interlocutor asks why she says this, and Roberta bites her lip. It was the group that framed Leona along with the villain Roberta. But moreover, they were the most arrogant people in the Empire. She understood that if she could erase them from Leona's life, her friend would never know about it. Roberta gently takes her friend by the cheeks, turning to her. She asks her not to get involved in useless gossip and rumors when it comes to relationships. Suddenly, Bernadette's joyful family appears at the front door. The father calls his daughter the hope of his family and a little flower, after which he begins to talk about how yesterday she was at a ball with the Grand Duke Cygnus. Suddenly, Roberta asks if her interlocutor heard her, after which she again asks not to get involved in useless gossip and rumors. She confidently says that this applies even to someone's parents. The man says he believed in his daughter from the start, but she says the Grand Duke just helped her a little at the ball. The girl insistently says that he really just helped, and only a little bit. She realizes that she was too careless, because after all, many saw her at the ball with the Grand Duke. Leona asks what her friend is talking about, but she only says that it doesn't matter at all. Suddenly, Roberta announces that she is going shopping with her friend to choose a dress for the next ball. On the way, the girl tells Leona that she got very drunk yesterday. She says she nearly fell, but the Duke helped her as he passed by, after which they parted as soon as they left the ball. The girl says that that was all and nothing more, mentally thinking that everything is fine and she will cope. Roberta knew and understood that everyone had seen how Gerald had helped her at the ball. Left alone, the parents talked about how it might be time to marry off their daughter, despite the fact that she said she was just getting help. The woman tries to convince him that there is nothing special about this, but the father confidently denies her words. Yesterday, a group of young men were gossiping about how Roberta had called the Duke a man who looked as if he wouldn't lose a drop of blood if you stabbed him with a knife. One of them suddenly said that something had happened between Gerald and the family's daughter, Bernadette, at the fountain in the backyard. Suddenly, Roberta's father ran up to him and asked him to tell him everything he knew. The guy was so scared that he couldn't just keep quiet. He admitted that the man's daughter was with Gerald Cygnus yesterday. The father's cheek suddenly turned red and he looked at the storyteller with admiration. The man tells this story to his wife and says that in social circles the news has already spread like wildfire, and all the young heirs of all families are turning their attention to Roberta, saying that she is the woman who seduced the Grand Duke. He would be overjoyed that his daughter had finally chosen a groom for herself despite her character. Suddenly, the woman jokingly asks if it is possible that the Grand Duke will become their son-in-law. They smile, and the father says that this will never happen. He says that he can't even imagine that the Grand Duke Cygnus could be their son-in-law. Gerald walks slowly past the admiring crowd, watching his every move. The guy notes that it seems like news of last night spread instantly through social circles. Sir Ori says that perhaps someone was following them and asks what they were doing out in the open. The Duke says that he was careless and he shouldn't have done it, so he needs to find a way to resolve it. The guy suddenly menacingly declares that in the near future, he will visit the Marquis and Marchioness Bernadette and personally tell them that the rumors are a lie. Sir Ori suddenly asks in surprise why he would say this if it wasn't a lie. Gerald looks darkly at his subordinate and asks if he also believes these ridiculous rumors about him being a heartless man who is colder than ice. Ori looks at him in surprise, amazed that he was talking about this all this time. The girls note that this dress suits her incredibly well and the length is just right. Leona, the servants, and the seller look at the beautiful girl with admiration. They tell Roberta that she is insanely beautiful, especially in this dress. A friend asks why she didn't buy a ball gown, and the girl realizes that she couldn't wear the clothes Grand Duke Cygnus gave her in front of her. The seller says that she will carefully pack the dress that the girl originally came in. Roberta suddenly menacingly tells her to throw away the dress she showed up in the store in. The girl asks her, slightly embarrassed, if this isn't too much. The servants ask her to just try it on, after which she will definitely change her mind, because the outfit will suit her fairy tale image perfectly. They say she has excellent taste, and Roberta says she already knows it. Leona, trying on her outfit, says that she just wanted to stand on the sidelines at the ball, but this is a bit too much. Her friend tells her that this is her first meeting with the Grand Duke, so she should come to her senses and understand that this is an important event. The girl asks, embarrassed, what she is even talking about now. She states that she really doesn't care at all whether he is a Grand Duke or not. Roberta remembers that night when Gerald told her that he didn't want to hear about anyone else, and now he only wanted to hear her story. He asked with interest who Roberta Bernadette was. The girl says that her friend will change her mind as soon as they meet. Suddenly, Leona says that she has already met him. She says that at the ball, she heard that the handsome and powerful Grand Duke had returned to the Mutant Empire, and so she wanted to meet him in person. That day, she accidentally ran into him, for which she immediately asked him for forgiveness. Then, brightly burning red eyes looked at her with insane coldness. She knew that anyone would say that he was the very Duke from the rumors, and it would be difficult to find a man with a better body or a more beautiful face. Leona says that despite this, she does not want to meet a man who has such cold and scary eyes. She reports that anyone can confirm that he is actually a very scary and cold-blooded person who has not shed a drop of blood or tears. Roberta excitedly asks again if she has seen him yet. Her friend says that it happened, but only for a moment, and he didn't want to do anything to her. Suddenly, a glass standing near the girls breaks into 1,000 tiny pieces. Roberta instantly rushes towards her friend, shouting her name. Leona looks at her in surprise, not yet fully understanding what just happened. Finally realizing, she is horrified and looks into the distance in shock. Suddenly, the girl declares that this is definitely a real curse. Hearing this, Roberta says that after the ball, everything will finally get better. She fearfully grabs her friend by the shoulders, as if trying to bring her back to reality. The girl declares that the Grand Duke is not as bad as they say. She says that he has another side, not well known to everyone. Roberta says that he is a kind man who helped a drunk girl get home. That day, according to her own stories, he even listened to her drunken delirium. The guy also calmed down a man who was crying for some unknown reason. She says that the Duke is the kind of person who would not pass by someone in trouble. Roberta confidently states that one should not judge someone hastily. Leona looks at her thoughtfully, as if she finally understood the whole point. She suddenly asks what's wrong, which greatly surprises her friend. They glance at each other, not even knowing how to continue the dialogue. Suddenly, a girl appears at the door asking if Roberta is bragging. Leona happily shouts out Paley Isley's name, not expecting to see her at all. In Leona's misfortunes, the girl was the one who, together with Roberta, dragged the main character into trouble. In Roberta's 19th life, she was constantly rejected by her, although she committed countless evil deeds. Suddenly, the girls start to gather, happy that Isley has come in for the first time since the boutique's opening. Roberta understands that among young ladies, the girl always has real power thanks to her parents, who have the largest wine business in the empire, and, to generalize, she was a dangerous person with whom it is better not to talk. Suddenly, Isley asks why Roberta is silent, because she asked if she was bragging. The girl begins to say that the seated one spent the night with the Grand Duke Cygnus, when suddenly her mouth is covered by someone's hand. Roberta excitedly asks if they can talk somewhere else. She takes the girl into another room while she wonders what's going on. The room had a closed door and windows, which provided some security. For Roberta, the time had finally come when she could shut the girl up. Bernadette says it's all a huge misunderstanding and nothing more. She states that it doesn't matter what the girl heard from other people. Roberta, as if mad, says that it's all a misunderstanding, repeating it over and over again, and Isley screams that she knew it all along, that the woman standing opposite was crazy. The captured girl pushes the shocked girl away and nervously asks her to stop. She asks Roberta to tell everything in detail, because she saw it personally. Isley says she saw her with the Grand Duke at the fountain yesterday. Roberta wonders excitedly what she was able to see. Bernadette says that she had too much to drink and therefore made a mistake. After which, of course, she immediately apologizes to him. The girl pretends that nothing happened between them during the night, and Roberta asks why the Grand Duke would do such a thing. Isley says angrily that, of course, this is supposedly exactly how it is. She suggests pretending that nothing happened even if something did. Suddenly, the girl points to the marks on the opposing woman's neck, saying that they shouldn't be there. Isley says that she'd better start telling the truth instead of trying to lie to her, because she can do more than she thinks. She suddenly announces that it is time for her to go, after which she opens the door and leaves. Roberta looks at her questioningly, not understanding who she thinks she is. Meanwhile, Isley was walking somewhere with displeasure, thinking about how she dared to do that. The girl, very angry, mentally calls Roberta a damned girl. In fact, that evening she saw even more than that situation at the fountain, because she was standing behind the tree. She suddenly decides that none of this happened, because they drank too much and saw hallucinations. Meanwhile, the maids are talking about the fact that they cannot hear what is being said in the other room. One of them approaches Leona and asks if she knows anything, if they are friends. Leona states that she will pretend not to know anything until Roberta tells her. One of the maids says that she can't believe that the girl is hiding this. Leona, smiling, reports that Roberta is quite shy. Meanwhile, the girl, sitting in that very room, hopes that the one who left will not tell her friend about everything. Very soon she realizes that she was too self-confident and careless. The girl slowly descends the stairs, when suddenly she sees the Duke in front of her, who says that there was no news from her, which is why he decided to come. A blush and a strong sense of incomprehension suddenly appear on her face, and she opens her mouth wide in surprise. She closes the door behind her, going back into the room, and Claire suddenly says that the Grand Duke has arrived, who is head over heels in love with the lady. The maid says that her ladyship has ordered her to be dressed up and escorted downstairs, and the girl asks why she should dress up in her own house. She suddenly says that this guy is wearing very strange clothes today. A few days ago, Sir Ori stopped the Duke from visiting Bernadette. Gerald was unhappy about this because he wanted to disprove the rumors that he was heartless as soon as possible. Then the subordinate said that he always stood out, so to speak, for his charisma. He said that he felt he needed to show a completely different side and smile softly to begin with. The man said that there is a saying that you can't spit on a smiling face, after which he advised the gentleman a couple of things. His first piece of advice was that first impressions are very important, and the Duke, coming to Bernadette's family, asks for forgiveness for coming unannounced, sitting in glasses that hide his sharp gaze, and an elegant gray outfit. Father says it is a great honor for them to meet the Grand Duke. The mother notes that, contrary to rumors, he is a very handsome and elegant man. They say they can't believe he came all this way because he missed their daughter, and he replies that he always wanted to come to the place where Roberta was born. The second piece of advice was to start by talking about a general topic, like the story of Lady Bernadette, and the guy asks what kind of child their daughter was like as a child. Parents begin to worry and stutter, not even knowing what to say. Roberta, whom the parents knew, ordered the maids to bark like dogs all day because they dropped her precious things, thinking that this was a suitable punishment. The head of the family says that Roberta likes dogs and is a charming lady who loves animals. He states that he thinks she wanted a dog-like man who would listen to her and eat well, then corrects his previous statement to say that she simply thought she was bringing home a cute, puppy-like man. They suddenly say that they are just joking, feeling too much excitement. The Duke thinks that the reason for the girl's hesitation is that he does not look like a dog. He suddenly says that he is very sorry that he is not like a puppy, which surprises his mother. The guy adds that he is sure that Bernadette's estate is the perfect place for children and dogs to have fun. He says that when he arrived, he saw that the estate was very sunny and lively. Gerald remarks that he regrets not having been able to see Roberta as a child, so he suddenly wants to know more about the place. The third piece of advice was that he should show interest by asking questions, which ultimately made the head of the family very happy. The Duke points out that the estate was built 20 years before their daughter was born, and then asks what their plans are for the next 20 years. The parents suddenly look at him in shock, realizing that they were not prepared for such a question. Meanwhile, the maid finished dressing Roberta, realizing that the young lady's future depended on her. To further charm the enamored Grand Duke, she made the image both sophisticated and natural. At first glance, the outfit may seem modest, but in fact, a lot of effort was put into it. Roberta suddenly notices that the maid has done a great job. The girl's face suddenly changes, realizing that she needs to get rid of this useless, distracting thought. In Leona's world, she was just a supporting character, a villain. All she could do was walk down the stairs and resolutely reject the guy's offer. She needed to do this to make sure he never came looking for her again. The girl finally goes downstairs and realizes that it would only be easy after talking to her parents. She suddenly sees before her eyes how her father declares that if the boy believes him, then he will increase his wealth even more. The man asks the Duke to just look at his immediate plans. From the outside, it felt like the roles had been reversed, and the Duke was the father who didn't want to marry his daughter off to a poor man. The fourth piece of advice was that the Duke should praise his parents when he listened to the story, when suddenly the boy said that only an optimist without a plan could believe that such investments would make one rich, and this was commendable, albeit naive. Roberta suddenly takes the Duke by the hand and asks him to stop, after which she pulls him along with her. The girl angrily asks him why he came here at all. She says that she wants to be as frank with him as possible when suddenly she's interrupted. The guy asks if she is trying to irresponsibly and shamelessly suggest that they pretend that what happened between them that night never happened. He says that he is sure that her bright, positive parents, with whom he just spoke, did not raise her to be so shameless, and the girl understands that he was still able to talk to her parents. Roberta asks him to allow her to introduce him to her friend, who, in her opinion, is much nicer and more beautiful than her. The guy asks if she's going to be someone's friend again. He admits that he actually thought a lot about her words that very day. What got to him was that she wasn't sure if these were her feelings and emotions. It made him wonder if she felt unreal, and if there was a gap between who she really was and who everyone else saw. He assumed that she couldn't talk about her experiences with anyone else. The girl looks at him with some hope, feeling as if at least someone understands her after such a long time. She wondered why he was so perceptive. She wonders to herself if the guy has always been like this. The Duke says that he is the one who came into her life recently and that her life was so stagnant. He informs her that he is the one who wants to build a new relationship with her. The guy adds that he is also the one she needs most right now. He asks if she can tell him what she is so worried about. The Duke says that perhaps he can help her in some way. The guy adds that at least now he sees the girl Roberta Bernadette in front of him. He says that she is a girl, not some character from a book. Suddenly, the father bursts into the conversation, announcing that he has finally found a way. He asks the Duke to take a look, as he was able to rework the plan to attract investment, and then asks to have tea together and discuss it. Gerald says he has to go, after politely excusing himself. Finally, the guy tells his interlocutor that he will wait if she needs time, and she can tell him whenever she wants. He is about to say something else when suddenly the head of the family sneezes on him. The man apologizes and then wonders why he sneezed, when suddenly a barking sound is heard. The guy asks the dog to be a little quieter because this is not even his house. Suddenly, the father's joyful voice is heard asking if it is Adrian. The boy turns around and sees a happy Marquis Bernadette in front of him. The parents immediately rush to the young man, while Roberta and the Duke stand aside. Gerald asks who it is, and she says she has no idea. Roberta suddenly notices that he looks like a puppy, and the guy looks at her indignantly, remembering the information he recently received. Adrian reports that he met a stray dog, and after feeding it, it started following it, after which he apologized to his father for bringing the dog even though his elder brother has allergies. The head of the family says he is fine, when suddenly he sneezes again. The guy suddenly notices a girl in the distance and happily calls her the beautiful lady, little Roberta. Taking off his glasses, Gerald suddenly announces that he has changed his mind. He says menacingly that he decided to stay with them for tea after all. The father is very happy about this news and suggests that they all talk together. Meanwhile, Roberta is thinking about why everything is becoming more and more complicated. Everyone sits around a small tea table, creating a circle of people. The girl asks if they want to say that Adrian Watford is a close friend of her brother Oliver. The man asks how she can't remember if she followed him around like a shadow as a child, but his wife says that makes sense because she was only 5 at the time. Roberta thinks that this looks quite peaceful, but she has her doubts because this is complete nonsense. Gerald suddenly says that he calls her by name, like a good friend, but in reality they are not that close, and it is an honor for him to meet him, although he has not even met Roberta's brother. Trying to repel some attack, Adrian says that he is honored that His Excellency is glad to meet him. The head of the family intervenes in their dialogue and recalls that the Duke mentioned that he was interested in learning about the girl's childhood, after which he says that his brother's friend knows everything. Adrian reports that before he went abroad, he and Roberta did so much. He is suddenly interrupted and says that he can recall his memories with her. The guy says that he really misses the old days looking at the Duke. He says that the girl was a hooligan, and such people are called real impudent ones. Then she continued to behave like this, even though she got into a lot of trouble. Looking at her then, Oliver asked what was with that rebellious expression on her face. Her brother noted that she had already ruined the garden countless times. Not only that, but she also inserted fragrant flowers into Leona's dog's fur. Oliver said she took and tortured her friend's dog without permission. Adrian stood up for the girl, asking her to leave all this because apparently she just wanted to decorate the dog. The guy asked how the little girl knew that dogs had a good sense of smell. Hearing this, little Roberta burst into tears and threw herself into Adrian's arms. She said that she hated her brother and would marry his friend. Finishing the story, the guy says that she was so sweet that he couldn't hate her, even though she looks the same now. He notes that he is sad that she forgot that she promised to marry him. The girl suddenly says that it's not that she's forgotten everything. In fact, she was a completely different person, but she couldn't explain it. Gerald suddenly looks gloomily at his satisfied narrator. He asks what he is talking about if Roberta is completely different now. The Duke says she has grown into a girl who prefers physical and mental health, as well as nature. He reports that for today's girl, decorating dogs and rebelling is unimaginable. Gerald looks at Roberta with a grin and asks if that's true. He asks her to answer directly while she mentally calls him an idiot. The guy also notes that he corners the girl as if she accepted him, telling her about what happened when she was only 5, which is not very gentlemanly. Listening to this, Roberta mentally dreamed that he would finally stop. She had no idea why they were even fighting with each other now. Roberta prayed for someone to do something about this awkward situation. Suddenly, Sir Ori comes and announces that it is time for His Excellency to leave. Getting up from the table, Gerald apologizes, then says that he is sorry that he could not stay until the end. Meanwhile, Roberta mentally thanked Sir Ori with all her heart, who had just saved the whole situation. She felt relieved and knew that she could finally take a break from all this. As he says goodbye, Gerald tenderly kisses her hand before leaving. Parents look at this basket with admiration, dying of emotion. He suddenly asks if the girl remembers what he recently said. Then he said that it was he who burst into her established life. He wanted to be in a relationship with her, and he was the one she needed right now. The guy said that he was here to help her with all this. The girl looks at the smirking guy, wondering how he can help her at all. After some time, Roberta tells Adrian that all she got were confused thoughts. She apologizes for her behavior and says she's incredibly upset. Eventually, after the Duke left, they continued to have tea. Somehow, after a while, it suddenly turned into a fancy dinner. Afterward, she was sent for a walk with a man she had never seen before. It was a man who had never appeared in his previous 19 lives. Considering that she didn't read about him in the novel, he must appear after Roberta's death. Judging by his appearance, she assumed he was a minor male character. The girl asks if he remembers Leona, and the guy asks if she means her friend. She assumed that this character was closer to Roberta than to Leona. The girl suddenly thought that it must be hard to return from studying abroad only to find out that his beloved little sister was dead. Adrian suddenly asks if he can ask his question too. He wonders what her relationship is with the Grand Duke as they seem quite close. The girl says quite calmly that they have no relationship. She understood that no matter what he did or said, he would not be able to influence her life in any way. After all, he is the main male character in the work. And in the end, it is he who will kill her at the end, which is surely already close. Adrian suddenly approaches the girl and takes her hand after hearing the answer. He excitedly asks if this means he still has a chance. The guy apologized in advance just in case, for making her life difficult. Adrian, smiling, suddenly asks if she likes sweets. Roberta imagines a picture of them as little children walking together while Leona watches them from afar. She realizes that the guy who looks like a minor male character is actually on the side of the villain Roberta Bernadette. Meanwhile, Leona watches a painting where a guy says that he doesn't understand what kind of treason people are talking about. He was apparently about to be arrested while his wife watched nervously, knowing there was nothing she could do. Suddenly, Leona says that it's all her fault, while the maid looks at her questioningly. The girl reports that lately bad luck has been following her around, as if something wants her dead. After some time, Roberta states that she must say that these are just prejudices. She begs her frightened friend very strongly not to believe in such a thing. Bernadette looks at her very sadly, asking her to make a promise. This morning, the girl had really had a very hard day. Roberta quickly climbed the stairs, shouting her friend's name. Leona asked what this excitement was all about this morning, and she said that she should be the one asking. She wonders if the Almaz family's hotel is a rebel hideout. One of the hotels her father managed turned out to be a rebel hideout. Fortunately, the father, who was arrested last night, was released. This only happened after they believed that he had nothing to do with it. Roberta says it's a relief, but her friend suddenly denies it. Leona reports that an article in the morning paper described her father's hotel as a rebel hideout. She asks if what's been happening to her lately is too strange. The girl says that it was as if a demon had appeared, holding a grudge against her and trying to destroy her future. All this time, she seemed to be haunted by a variety of misfortunes. Wherever she goes, glass breaks, or she falls and gets injured. She was constantly wondering at what point everything went wrong. She says that suddenly it dawned on her and she found a way to get her peaceful life back. It was as if someone had deliberately whispered the answer to her. Roberta is asked again if she has found out how to return to normal life. She asks how she did it when suddenly a piece of paper appears in front of her. It was an advertisement for a fortune teller, and Leona said that this woman was very popular. Roberta looks at her in shock, not expecting such an outcome at all. After some time, they are already standing near the fortune teller's house, and Roberta says that her friend is not brave at all because she just saw an advertisement and got excited. She replies that in that case she will go with her, and Bernadette says that she was so serious that she could not leave her. Roberta says that her friend's money will be taken away. She will be isolated from society and become a beggar. Leona suddenly says that she understands very well how stupid this is. She says she feels like she is on a death wheel with no way out, and she feels helpless. The girl admits that she feels like she will go crazy if she doesn't do anything. Roberta says that she knows and has been through it, to which she only receives a questioning look. The girl did not go into details, and taking Leona by the hand, led her to the house. She quietly says that they should go together after all, and she is not going to leave her friend. Bernadette notes that if the fortune teller tries to take even a little money from her or do anything, they will immediately leave. After this, she confidently asks the one walking behind her not to let go of her hand. The girl says that she must always be strong, no matter what happens. She adds that she doesn't want to see her succumb to someone's evil intentions for even a second. The fortune teller, seeing her visitors, calls them girls who should not be here. Leona happily wishes her good morning, smiling sweetly while her friend looks at the old lady in shock. She suddenly points her finger at the woman and says it was her. She asks if she remembers her, because they had met and talked earlier after the girl was riding from the Duke and got out of the carriage to help the old woman. The fortune teller says she is not very sure that she remembers anything. She mysteriously remarks that her friend should finally know everything. The old woman says that her life has not been going well in recent days, and this is because someone has stolen her destiny. She adds that, on the other hand, it looks like her friend is in for a new destiny. The fortune teller extends her hand to Roberta and says that this fate is too great for her, a worthless girl, and she cannot cope with it. The woman pulls her by the necklace as she looks at her menacingly. The old woman says that if things continue like this, something terrible will happen. Roberta asks in surprise what she means now. She wonders if the old woman knows everything about the fate that awaits them. Leona suddenly notices that her friend is getting too carried away by the fortune teller's stories. She asks her to pull herself together and says that something terrible will happen if she dwells too much on the fortune teller's words. The woman says that this is all she can say, then hands them the jewelry, asking them to accept it. She asks to keep jewelry close to you because this will help stop bad luck. The fortune teller approaches Roberta and says that she herself should know that everyone creates their own destiny with their own hands. She informs him that instead of reversing his changed fate, he must act more carefully than he does now, for the sake of his poor friend. Suddenly, Leona bangs aggressively on the table and asks the fortune teller to stop. The girl says that she will pay for everything, holding out a bill and asking to take her money, not her friend's. She looks at the old woman again and asks her not to extort money from Roberta. The girl also says that she shouldn't force her friend to do something weird. Leona takes the bewildered girl by the hand and decides that it is time to leave here. As she leaves the house, she says that this woman seems capable, but one should not trust her too much. She asks with interest what the old woman whispered to her then. Roberta was sure that the fortune teller knew something very well. She repeats under her breath the words that she should act more carefully. Roberta suddenly announces that she needs to go somewhere, which greatly surprises her friend. She says in fear that she needs to appear at the ball like a comet and surprise everyone. Several days pass and the long-awaited day of the ball arrives. The girls discuss the fact that the lady drinks the same amount as last time. They assumed that perhaps she did not see these looks on herself. The girls thought she was enjoying the attention, which is why she came in that dress. The guys gathered around look at the girl and admire her beauty. Suddenly, Isley comes up to her and says that she is glad to see that she is doing well. The one that caught the most attention from most people was Leona Almaz. Isley reports that she was worried about her when she read the article in the newspaper, as there were terrible rumors that her father had gotten involved with the rebels. The crowd asks if this is the reason why they say Leona looks terrible, but suddenly thinks that it is just a rumor after all. The girl says that they never believed such rumors, and this is logical, because they are friends. Leona suddenly asks happily if this is true, beaming with happiness. She thanks Isley for believing in her even when she heard such dire rumors, which touched her deeply. Almaz says she heard that there will be a more correct article about the false accusation of her father. The girl happily reports that she no longer falls, bumps into things, or gets hurt. She suddenly sadly notes that this does not mean that all her worries have disappeared. Suddenly, Leona turns around and sees a girl about to drink another glass. It was Roberta, and the girl thought that her friend was behaving too strangely. Bernadette mysteriously, loudly suggests shuddering for the bloody fate. Isley asks what she's doing, then says she knew she was crazy. But not that crazy. She looked at her plain dress, wondering what that dull yellow color was, and then associated her with egg pie. Leona remembers how her friend dragged her somewhere after meeting with a fortune teller. Then they headed to the dress shop, which confused the girl a little, because they had already chosen outfits for the ball. Roberta suddenly said that she had almost forgotten, since it was a long time ago, but when the boy falls in love with her, something wonderful will happen. In the piece, Leona had her hair floating in the air, red petals falling on her dress, and a dress as blue as the sky on a clear day. In the novel, the Duke should not have been able to take his eyes off her at all. This whole event must have been like some kind of spell. Because of this moment, wherever he sees this color, he must think of Leon. That's exactly how it was in the novel, and no matter what happened last time at this ball, Roberta was going to make up for lost time. She knew that if Gerald saw the original scene, he wouldn't be able to take his eyes off the red petals and Leona in the blue dress. And the opposite color to blue was actually yellow. Isley approaches the girl and says that she thought that only the Diamond family had collapsed, after which she asks what is happening in Lady Bernadette's family. Finishing her next glass, Roberta looks angrily at the woman standing opposite her. Isley suddenly became confused and asked what she was so unhappy about. If the original is to be believed, Roberta and these girls knew that Leona would catch Gerald's eye at this ball. It all started with their joint bullying of Leona. Roberta wanted her friend not to worry, so she was going to get rid of those annoying midges. She suddenly puts her hand on Isley's shoulder and asks one of the girls if they look like twins today, after which she explains that their dresses today are very similar. Paley indignantly asks what her yellow dress has in common with her bright lemon one. Bernadette asks her not to tell her that she doesn't know how much effort it takes for ordinary people to dye fabric. She says that His Excellency, whom they all admire, hates those who look down on common people. Isley says menacingly that it is far from her place to speak about Gerald's preferences. Roberta suddenly informs her that she should already know that she has already spent the night with him. Paley's face darkened considerably, and he suddenly asks her to stop making such jokes. She says that she already warned her, and Roberta sarcastically says that she is very scared. The girl says she just wanted to have fun at night, then asks if that means she's following her. She tells him that this is why she wore the yellow dress that he hates. Suddenly, grinning, she says she can't believe Isley wore a dress that looked so similar. As she leaves, Roberta asks her to remember that the Duke, whom she likes so much, hates the color yellow. In the end, she only joyfully shouts that she deceived her very successfully. The girls who were nearby all this time say that she is really crazy. They remark that poor Paley lost so easily to Roberta. The girls say she bragged so much about her family's wine business and acted like she was the coolest, which, frankly, started to get on their nerves. Suddenly, a loud sound is heard, and rose petals begin to fall from above. Leona looks at this with admiration, raising her head up. Meanwhile, the Grand Duke stands above, looking at the girl and catching her gaze. She looks at him a little surprised, her mouth slightly open in surprise. His gaze also, albeit slightly involuntarily, stopped on the girl. A few seconds before the incident, he was talking to a man who thanked him for his positive feedback and said that if he would allow it, he would like to tell him a little more about what he was currently working on. Seeing that his interlocutor's gaze was fixed on something located on the first floor, he called out to his listener. Looking down, the speaker saw the face of a girl looking at the Duke. Roberta understands that this is how fate has put everything in its place. She was drinking another glass of alcohol, leaning against the railing. The next episode of the work was supposed to be a date in the park under the moonlight. The girl should have seen this in just a few seconds. She'd already noticed her friend standing on the street and waiting for someone. She enjoyed watching Leona get nervous as she waited for the meeting. She knew that as a villain, it was high time for her to carefully retreat. Suddenly, a familiar voice is heard behind her, telling her that she should be more careful. The guy suddenly snatches her glass from her hands and brings it to his lips. Without thinking for a second, he calmly begins to drink the remaining alcohol. It was His Excellency who somehow appeared next to the girl. She asked him how he got there, and he said he saw her walking there drunk. Roberta suddenly says that he should have gone to Leona and not to her, because they met eyes as fate had decreed. The Duke looks at her questioningly and says that he met the eyes of the girl in the blue dress. At that moment, Almaz was happily looking up somewhere and waving energetically. Gerald had been indifferent at the time, not understanding whether they even knew each other, but suddenly he saw Adrian looking down in fascination. The guy says that she probably called someone she knew, and then asks the girl to look outside. A guy dressed in a beautiful white suit suddenly approaches Leona. She looks at him more closely and sees Adrian standing next to her friend. Darkened, she asks what's going on and what's going on now. The girl says that this should not have happened at all. The Duke looks at her and realizes that she really is a strange girl. He recalled how Ori reported to him that during his investigation he had found no record of Roberta Bernadette having been in any accident. The man added that she does not have any physical illnesses. He then reported that Bernadette appeared to be in perfect health. The last thing he said was that she could be a completely unique person in some places. Gerald realizes that she simply has her own problems that most people don't know about. Sir Ori also then told him that she liked bright dresses, so he worked hard to prepare one. But the problem is that he is not sure that the lady likes His Excellency. He said confidently that his master was not at all like a dog. Ori added that it seemed that he was interesting and attractive to this unusual girl. But he thinks it would be better to stay and look for someone else before things get more serious. Gerald didn't want to admit it, but his subordinate was indeed right. Unfortunately, he simply couldn't help but notice her intense gaze. The Duke watches as she scratches her already wounded neck again. He takes her hand and says that he had hoped that she would greet him with a much more relaxed expression on her face. The guy reminds her that he had already said before that he could help her. The girl looks at him with eyes full of despair and some hope. Gerald noted that she was often lost in her own thoughts and was always on guard. Roberta's friend says that even His Excellency cannot always decide everything. He notes that now he doesn't even know what she's thinking about. The Duke says that this is the reason why he is so worried and nervous. Besides that, he was incredibly excited about it. Smiling maliciously, the girl asks if he is really that happy. He looks at her questioningly and asks if she was just trying to do this for fun. The guy says the dress she's wearing looks like it was made from a favorite childhood blanket, and he doesn't think she would have chosen the fabric if she weren't attached to it. The girl suddenly points out that he has been pretending to be polite all this time, but he is terribly arrogant, and it is incredibly rude to insult someone else's taste. The Duke suddenly asks, upset, if this is exactly what her taste is. He asks if this is the reason why she didn't wear the dress that was sent to her. That day, she cut her gift into 1,000 little pieces. Then the girl answered the maid that she would never wear it under any circumstances. Gerald says his closest aide, Ori, told her she likes bright dresses. He says it's a great shame, and he can't believe he has such an incompetent assistant. The girl realizes that she urgently needs to save poor Sir Ori. She heard that he had married and was expecting his first child next spring. The guy says it's a great pity that the breadwinner of a young family will soon become unemployed, although it's no longer his business. Roberta asks worriedly if he's going to fire him. She suddenly says that she couldn't put the mouth on because she had gained weight. Bernadette reports that she is the queen of luxury, the embodiment of pretense and pride, but her waist has become larger. She pulls the Duke by his cloak as he leaves, when she suddenly notices something strange. The girl screams that this is not what she wanted at all, and suddenly begins to fall. Gerald quickly grabs her by the waist, and their faces stop opposite each other a short distance away. Roberta blushes deeply, and the boy realizes that, as he thought, his subordinate had misunderstood everything. He asks if this is too much of a reaction for someone who said he wasn't her type. The guy notices that her waist still fits his arms perfectly, and she asks him not to say weird things. Suddenly, the sound of glass breaking and falling is heard. and those standing on the street look up. Leona looks up in surprise, not understanding where the glass came from or why. There was a light where they looked, but there was not a single person in sight. The girl suddenly happily notices that for the first time in a while, she has not gotten hurt, even though someone broke a glass. She excitedly says that it's all thanks to her new bracelet. Meanwhile, Roberta and the Duke lay on the floor, looking embarrassedly into each other's eyes. The girl's face became more and more flushed with each passing second. The Duke suddenly asks what kind of situation this is. Roberta suddenly pushes him away and asks what he is even talking about. She apologizes and says that she should leave the balcony first. The next morning, the girl reads a letter from her friend, who apologizes for disappearing yesterday without saying a word. She wrote that she seemed to have been overexcited and had been walking for a long time, after which she noted that the wind was terribly cold. The maid reported that a letter from Lady Diamond had arrived that morning, and how fortunate it was that they were on such good terms. Reading the letter, Roberta understood that it was she who disappeared in the middle of the ball. She understood that yesterday's project, where she was supposed to meet her destiny, had completely failed. The girl began to remember the events of the previous day in a more sober state. The first reason she disappeared was that, unlike Roberta, who liked men with puppy faces, she had different tastes. She was madly in love with guys like him, the Grand Duke. She suddenly starts screaming, wondering what will happen if she gives in to the moment. The maids begin to whisper that she has been acting strange these last few days, even though this has always been the case. They say that she has always been arrogant, but now something seems to have embarrassed her, when suddenly a man's voice is heard behind them, asking if this is how lovers behave. The guy who suddenly appeared says that he was interested in what his little sister was doing, and now that she has grown up, he sees that she has achieved a lot. It was Oliver Bernadette, Roberta's brother, a diplomat who was often away on business trips. He says that while he was gone, the Grand Duke became the talk of the Muton Empire, then asks why they were looking at him like that. Roberta, who had not yet noticed her brother, suddenly hears Adrian's voice. She suddenly rushes to him, asking if he was with an incredibly beautiful girl yesterday. The girl thought that everything would have been fine if only he had not gone into the garden with Leona. Adrian looks at her questioningly, not understanding at all what she is talking about. The girl grabs his hand and says that they need to move away, then leads him away. The maid shouts after her that she hasn't seen the young master for a long time and hasn't even greeted him when suddenly the guy notices that this is all a love triangle and love affairs. Oliver says that ever since she was a child, his little sister had a talent for ruining and complicating everything. He says he didn't understand it at all as a child, but his opinion changed after a terribly boring daily job. The guy notes that this charming mess is very exciting. Standing next to the guy, the girl understood that she needed to organize everything perfectly. She decided that she needed to think about her next step immediately. Bernadette knew she had to stop thinking about Gerald first. Suddenly, Roberta says in a resigned tone that it's all just useless. She expresses her thoughts about the Grand Duke in such circumstances, which arouses the boy's interest. Suddenly, he hands her a candy which surprises her greatly, because it was very unexpected. Adrian asks if she wants candy, noticing that she is lost in her thoughts again. Roberta looks at him in shock, not expecting such an action at all. She discontentedly frees the candy from its wrapper without taking her eyes off the person standing opposite her. The girl reminded him that he had already said something similar last time. Adrian confesses that the beautiful girl he met yesterday at the ball was Leona Almaz. He says that this is the one the girl told her about, and he was pleased to see that they still get along. The guy says that that's all, and he has no more information, after which he says that he hopes that she believes him. She agrees and says that she has no doubts. The guy remembers how yesterday Leona told him about a bracelet that prevents all sorts of misfortunes. Then he smiled, which made her wonder why he was laughing. Immediately after this, the guy apologized and said that he just thought that she was cute. Adrian happily noted that the girl had not changed at all since that day. He noticed that he had forgotten so much, and suddenly he wondered if Roberta would allow him to feel this in the future. The boy said he felt memories from the past slowly warming him. Roberta was not surprised that he told his friend's younger sister about what happened at the meeting with the beautiful lady. Suddenly she looks at him sullenly, as if she is extremely unhappy about something. She says she needs to know what the future holds. The girl hands him a candy and decides that she will not rush today and will just go with the flow. Suddenly she asks the guy to give her just a little bit of his time a little later. She just couldn't help but wonder what this guy was thinking. Suddenly, Adrian asks if she is by any chance asking him out on a date. The guy eats a candy while the girl says that his guess is wrong. She says that she would simply like to get to know him better. The girl asks him if he could take a walk with her and chat a little. He suddenly asks in surprise if this is not a date. Sitting at a table opposite Roberta, He says that they have walked quite a distance for a walk. He recalls that he had said earlier that he was a little busy. Bernadette says that they will go their separate ways here, and she will go to Leona's, and he will go to the office, and halfway there they need to have coffee. She decides that after letting her guard down with sweets, she will ask him about the progress of his relationship with Leona. Suddenly he remarks that most likely their mutual friend will be happy if they visit her together. He suddenly remembers that it was quite cold yesterday, hinting that she might not be feeling well. Bernadette thinks that this cunning fox tried to deceive her innocent Leona. The guy suddenly removes the cream on her lips and says that she hasn't changed at all since childhood. Roberta understands that judging by his appearance and behavior, he has charmed hundreds of women. She suddenly asks what they were talking about, and then asks if they left with her. He reports that he and the girl were talking specifically about Ribert, and how she is often misunderstood, although she is a cutie, after which he walked Leona back and heard about Bernadette again. Then a small crowd of girls whispered that the crazy lady was somewhere nearby. They said that she came in a disgusting dress, and they wouldn't even use it as a cat litter. Adrian reports that after this, the aristocrats harshly criticized her. Suddenly, he wonders if Gerald really hates Yellow so much. She seriously asks why he suddenly started talking about him. The girl says that she doesn't know this, because as she said, they have nothing in common. Adrian suddenly starts to get embarrassed and covers his mouth with his hand, and his facial expression changes dramatically. He looks away and says that now he can finally understand everything. Suddenly, he starts talking about some of her deepest feelings. Adrian reports that the yellow dye is derived from the extract of the Cobain flower, which only grows in high mountain regions. But due to recent diplomatic problems, supplies have become unstable, and production has also dropped sharply. He says she lied to the lady when she said the Grand Duke was the most eligible bachelor who hated the color yellow. The guy says the deception made them give up their extravagant yellow outfits. He reports that this was exactly what everyone was talking about at the ball. Adrian looks at her with admiration, wondering who she really is. She wonders if her reputation has changed that much, without really understanding what she's talking about. He quotes the Grand Duke as saying that she is one of those who value inner well-being and nature more than external attractiveness. People start to look strangely at Bernadette and her brother's friend sitting opposite each other. He says that she is just like a hero and has been like that since childhood. The guy notes that she could never ignore the suffering of others and would lend a helping hand. Long ago, as a child, she worriedly asked Adrian why he was crying. The boy looked at the woman who had just arrived with tears in his eyes. She told him that it was time for them to play together again, and then Adrian admitted that he could not play with her anymore. He said that this might be the last time they would see each other in person. The boy said that his parents wanted to send him to study abroad. He didn't want to leave at all, but unfortunately, no one listened to him at all. Adrian said he can't even decide where he wants to go and feels like some kind of pet. Suddenly, the girl handed her friend a piece of candy to stop him from crying. He looked at her questioningly, not quite understanding what was happening. The girl shared that this is her favorite cherry-flavored candy. She promised that once he ate it, he would feel much better. The boy asked her if she considered him a puppy, but she replied that he was not a dog but her ideal husband. Then she asked him to marry her as soon as he arrived from abroad. Suddenly, the girl sees something in front of her and asks who it is. It was a stray dog, and Bernadette immediately realized that the animal wanted to eat. Roberta suddenly asks her interlocutor if he knows what dogs should eat. The guy looks at her with fascination, thinking about something of his own, about the past. He remembered how the girl asked him not to forget her and promised to write to him. The maid asks if the young lady really sent a letter to Master Adrian when she was a child. Oliver, without thinking at all, says that it is practically impossible. This was due to the fact that when his sister learned to write, she'd already forgotten about his existence. Claire notes that it turned out to be quite an interesting love triangle. She says that her mistress likes the Grand Duke Cygnus, and although she says that it is not so, the maid knows the truth. Suddenly he announces that today he is rushing to a meeting with the Grand Duke. The guy reads the title and says that these tickets are very hard to get now. She says that there is a way for everything, and Leona asked Lady Shreen's maid Elrom about this. Suddenly, a girl bursts into the room, asking what is going on here. The maid looks questioningly at the newcomer and addresses her as Lady Grania. The one standing at the door suddenly screams that the main character is trying to put on a performance without her. A little earlier, the woman told the man that Roberta had been picked up by Cygnus at the ball. Her interlocutor suddenly remarks that she is very lucky with this. He justifies this by saying that they have an incredibly good daughter. Grania asks why she has to listen to all this at all. She sadly and menacingly asks why Gerald doesn't love her. The maid, listening to this, looks at her sadly, not at all understanding why she has to endure this. The girl reports that nothing good has happened since she got into this book. Leona, sitting in her chair, suddenly notices that it is starting to get cold. The maid suddenly informs her that her friend has come to visit her. Roberta suddenly declares that she has come to the girl's aid. She holds out both hands in which were some herbs and cookies. Adrian gave them to her, thanking the girl for the wonderful time they had. The guy said that the herb would definitely help to cope with a cold. He also asked to convey to Leona that he wishes her a speedy recovery. Finally, Adrian handed over an envelope and asked to pass on the letter to the sick woman. Roberta asks her friend why she blushed so much when she read this letter. She wonders if he's trying to seduce her and makes her heart flutter. Suddenly, the girl notices tears in her friend's eyes and asks what the reason is. Leona suddenly complains that it seems she was refused after all. Roberta discovers that it wasn't Adrian who was trying to charm her all this time. She finally finds out that it is Leona who is interested in this guy. The girl shares that last night she asked him to help her with a difficult book. She reports that he sent her this letter with a polite refusal. Roberta notes that her friend, as always, falls for the elegant ones, just like the last 19 times. Leona says it's more like love than physical attraction. She thinks about how she was incredibly touched by his kindness, even as a child. She remembers how Adrian, leaving with Roberta, looked back and noticed her standing to the side. He politely asked if the girl wanted to go with them. The girl remembered how they sat together in the library when they were little, and Adriana read them a book. The boy looked at Roberta from time to time and chuckled a little when he saw her. He carefully placed Bernadette's head on his shoulder, trying to do it as gently as possible. He noted, smiling, that she fell asleep every time he read. The boy turned around and said that he was very glad that Leona listened to him. The girl remembered his gentle hands protecting the sleeping girl from the sun's rays and his warm smile, full of warmth. Leona admits that she liked everything about him, while her friend wonders if that even happened. The narrator asks if her friend has ever felt anything like this. The girl says that at such a moment she realizes that she has a weakness for this. These 19 lives, Ribert had only been dying, and there was no time for such things. The girl decided that she should mentally summarize all the information she had recently received. She described the guy as smart and good-natured, with a gentle voice. Roberta wonders if guys like that are even her type. Suddenly, a picture pops up in front of her of a guy telling a girl that she needs to protect her skin from ultraviolet rays. And Bernadette thinks that this is an advertisement, and this scene was not in the original. For her, this was completely different from the real and familiar Duke. Leona says she would like to know what her friend has a weakness for, and what kind of person she would fall in love with. She informs her that she doesn't have to do this if it makes her uncomfortable. The girl asks if she can tell her about it, after which she says that she hopes that such a day will come soon. After leaving her friend's room, Roberta spends some time trying to understand what is going on, covering her head with her hands. Suddenly, her maid comes out of the carriage and says that her mistress has been gone for a long time, so she came for her. Claire says the girl promised they would watch a play together, then suddenly asks what's wrong with her hair. She says that this is not good at all, and then asks Roberta to come to her. Bernadette thinks that she feels sorry for Leona, but she doesn't really know what she should do now. She goes through all possible options, starting with changing the type of guys and ending with replacing the Archduke. The girl wonders if they could fall in love with each other even if they met. Arriving at the play, she sees the Grand Duke in front of her, asking what they are doing here. She says it's quite a long story, looking at him in surprise. The girl sees his shirt unbuttoned a couple of buttons and says that he shouldn't dress like that. She was embarrassed by how much of his neck was exposed, so she began to button his shirt. She asks him to be more careful, because his appearance should show more education and intelligence. The girl nervously tightens his tie, trying to tidy up his appearance. Afterward, she asks him to comb his hair so that he looks more neat. The Duke suddenly thanks her for her concern, which surprises her a little. The guy asks if she's okay, removing her hand from his shoulder. Roberta looks at him questioningly, not quite understanding what he means. The Duke asks her if she thinks she's giving everyone too much dopamine. He says he's more interested in what she's doing, and the girl says she's interested in it too. She asks what he is doing here at all and why he came to the play. Gerald says that he has come to see a performance, and that the festival will feature an opera about the life of Saint Aubin-Rie. He says that he specially reserved all the seats in the theater, but 2 seats were still occupied by 2 more people, who were, apparently, she and her maid. Roberta sits down next to him and decides that since it comes down to it, she will figure out how to settle everything. She says that, as he said, he doesn't like crowded places because they are noisy, and then asks if he often visits libraries. The Duke says that sometimes he needs books that are not in his library, and he has been going there a lot lately. He reports that this is expected, since there are no books about pregnancy in the Cygnus family palace. Roberta looks at him in shock, not understanding at all what he means. Gerald reports that he heard that Sir Ori's wife was sad that she did not see her busy husband often. He says that's why he invited her to the show. According to him, creative works awaken emotions and can have a positive effect on the child and the woman herself. Roberta suggests that he was joking when he said he would kill Sir Ori, to which he receives a positive answer. She suddenly notices that he turns out to be much better than she thought. The Duke asks in fear who she thought he was before. Previously, she thought that he was an amazingly affectionate and attentive person, but she didn't even think about the fact that he was good for absolutely everyone around him. She suddenly remembers what her executions usually looked like when he was present. Roberta places one of her hands on her forehead and says that it is a great relief for her. She suddenly says that her suggestion to dress neatly was unnecessary. The girl takes him by the tie and tells him that he can wear whatever he feels comfortable in. Bernadette tells him that he is actually beautiful just the way he is. The guy looks at her questioningly at first, but then smiling thanks her. He says that he is very happy that she has exactly this opinion. It would have been a real relief to her, but she still wondered what kind of joke fate was playing on her. Suddenly, the performance begins and a girl appears on stage. She says that she probably shouldn't have come here at all. Roberta looks at the man sitting next to her and realizes that he is truly a kind person. She knew that Leon would like this kind of guy, and the story doesn't change at all. The girl recalled how Leona came to her and suggested that they run away. The accused said that there was no point in this, because she would be caught and executed anyway. She said that's exactly what had happened for the last 18 attempts. The girl was afraid that if people found out, they might punish Leona, but the girl told her that she would be fine, because the Duke would take care of everything. Leona said that she knows that she is a big problem, and she is guilty towards the guy because he is always there for those he cares about. She also thought about the other side, realizing that her friend's life was at stake. Roberta knew that no matter what happened, Gerald would always protect her friend. For the girl, this was absolutely always too much of a relief. Perhaps this made her happy, but it also made her jealous, which was truly shameless. While watching, Gerald glances at the woman sitting next to him from time to time. A girl on stage tells a guy that they can never be together. The actor says that even if she leaves him, he will always wait for her. He hands her the letter and asks if she will read it and respond. The girl says that she will never answer his letter and then leaves. Gerald turns around again and looks at his temporary neighbor. In this story, there was a girl who was born with a tragic fate, and she met a guy who wanted to help her, and she, attracted by his kindness and support, relied on him. In the end, she realized that her fate was in her own hands and said goodbye to him. The guy sent a letter to his lover who had left, but never received a response. After watching the play, Gerald realizes that it is a rather stupid story and there is nothing good in it. He realizes that he didn't need to book all the seats, and no one would have come anyway. The guy had no idea who would even want to watch something like that. He turns his head and sees Roberta sitting with tears in her eyes. Gerald looks at her in shock, not expecting such a reaction to this play. Those present say that it is truly a work of art. The pregnant woman says it is an impressive story about a progressive girl, and she dreams of their daughter being like the main character. The Duke continues to stare at the woman sitting next to him and suddenly hands her a handkerchief. He notes that the play apparently made an impression on her. The girl says that she is sorry that he will not be able to share this delight with her. She justifies this by saying that she really liked it. Roberta says that at first she thought it was just a matter of appearance, but, as she says, the actions and words touch the depths of her soul. The girl understood that the words were meaningless, but she could not make her heart stop beating wildly. She remembers the scene where the girl says that she is the one who appeared in his stagnant life. When he went out to find new acquaintances, it turned out that she was the one he needed the most. The Duke suddenly wonders if it is because the main character looks like a puppy. The guy notices that he behaves like a child, says unrealistic and baseless things, and he is synonymous with the word incompetence. The girl suddenly says that this is probably her type. She reports that some people really enjoy hearing such words, and it is easy for her to be overwhelmed by them. She remembers Leona asking her if she had ever felt anything like this. Her friend said that at such moments she realizes that she has a weakness for this kind of thing. The Duke suddenly grabs the hand of the girl who has already risen from her seat. He, slightly worried, asks her to tell him a little more about her preferences. The guy asks if she prefers formal clothing. He says he can't change his appearance to look like a puppy, but he can change his clothes. When suddenly the girl says he's fine the way he is. Roberta admits that she is actually more interested in his tastes. She says that this is, for example, where he likes to go and what attracts his attention. Meanwhile, Sir Ori with his wife and maid look at these two, not understanding why they do not come. Roberta notes that visiting such a place for the sake of the advisor's pregnant wife or taking an interest in a story in which the woman is apparently traumatized, is not at all in the spirit of the Archduke. She says it's all about selflessness and compassion. The girl suddenly pokes her finger at his forehead and tells him that he should think about it. Then her finger moves down to his tie, and she adds that he should also act with all his heart. Roberta informs him that only if he does good will a wonderful destiny await him. As she leaves, the girl says that it could be a beautiful place by the window in the library, or a gentle woman with whom she can share something. Finally, she says that all this has not been important for a very long time. After some time, Roberta, a little lost in thought, sits at a table on the street. In front of her sits her no more joyful brother, waiting for something. Seeing this scene, the maids note that the young lady has become very distant lately, and the young master agrees with this. They talked about how Oliver came in full of anticipation when he heard about it, and this hooligan became the main generator of dopamine, but behaved even more mediocre than he expected. They note that it is quite unusual that she is so calm and unresponsive because she usually attracts chaos and destruction. Claire looks at the people sitting opposite each other, realizing that the young lady is already quite grown up. She saw that Roberta was finally learning all the intricacies of love. Realizing this, the maid felt light and good in her soul, from which she could breathe a sigh of relief. Her mistress used to be a girl who just loved puppies, but soon she turned into a woman who loves men. The maid says that she feels sorry for Mr. Oliver, and that perhaps he should look for dopamine elsewhere, and her interlocutor notes that this was still the best place. Suddenly, Roberta breaks the silence and turns to her brother, telling him that she has been feeling very lonely lately. Oliver, feeling no dopamine at all, says that perhaps her relationship isn't going as smoothly as she had hoped. The girl says that this is precisely why, to ease the feeling of loneliness for a while, she needs a nice companion. The boy's dopamine level slowly rises, and he looks at his sister in surprise. She says outright that this companion's name is Nathan Palamedes. He was a puppy-like bard, a youth idol, and the fiancé of Roberta Bernadette, the villainess of Leona's misfortunes. Oliver's dopamine levels reach their limit, and the girl asks if she can invite the bard to their home. Roberta also adds that he suits her type perfectly. The maids, seeing and hearing this, look at the girl in surprise, not expecting such a request. Claire realizes that she has truly become a woman who loves men. Roberta has been in an unstable state for some time now. This happened after experiencing the unfortunate fate alone 19 times in a row. She seemed to have gone mad with fear and loneliness that haunted her. The girl seemed to be desperately walking towards the fire that was mercilessly flying towards her. She reached out to anyone who showed her even a little bit of kindness. Roberta understood that the Duke was actually a complete scumbag. She needed to get out of here as soon as possible. She knew there were still many people who could comfort her. The girl says that she heard that Nathan is a dumb but such a charming asshole that he melts hearts with his sweet words. She says his goofy, adorable demeanor makes him look like a puppy, which is her type. Her brother asks again just in case if she means Palamedes. He remembers that they are quite close with their family, and Roberta thinks that this is why they got engaged. Oliver happily says that in that case he will send the guy an invitation and they will meet during the day. He says that he was worried that the girl had grown up while he was away, but she is still the same. Claire looks at them and realizes that the young gentleman was ready to face a love triangle, while the lady got involved with a charming scoundrel. It was for this reason that her wishes were finally fulfilled. A crowd begins to gather outside, and the man says that on St. Aubin-Rie's Day, people can give their loved ones a special experience. He informs that this incredibly sacred relic can be purchased in their store. Claire looks at the page she received thoughtfully, studying it carefully. It depicted a sacred relic that might well have made you think. The maid suddenly asked Elrum, who was sitting opposite her, about a sacred relic that could cleanse the human spirit. She says that she may sound frivolous, which is why she called her even though she is busy. Claire admits that her mistress has been acting very strange lately. She says that if you think about it, it started a couple of months ago. The girl did not know why she initially suddenly announced the end of the world. Claire was also embarrassed that she had ruined her beautiful dress. After that, the girl wore some kind of horror to the ball instead of her wonderful gift. The maid reports that she also met with the Archduke, but this is too personal. She asks directly what could have happened to her dear lady. She says that Elrum really is the best fortune teller in Mutin. For unknown reasons, she only told fortunes for the maids and predicted all historical events in Mutin. Elrum says that this is indeed quite an old story. She thinks about the question that was asked to her just recently by the person sitting opposite her. The girl begins by saying that people always change over time. From time to time, these changes happen in a very unexpected direction. She reports that this especially applies to her lady and those around her. Elrum reports that Lady Roberta is surrounded by 3 men at once. One of them, she says, is the fearless Demon King. The second man is a knight who is madly devoted to the girl. And this time a new hero appeared, that is, the third, the windy jester. Meanwhile, a guy who had just arrived was already approaching Roberta. It was indeed Nathan, but she didn't quite remember what kind of person he was. The girl recalled how he asked if she was hurt, after which he said that she had been through a lot. When she asked him what he was talking about, the guy said that she could have gotten hurt when she lost her wings and fell from the sky. He said that she was as beautiful as an angel, and it was no wonder that he fell in love with her. Like a typical ladies' man, he charmed Roberta all 19 times, only to betray her when he set his sights on Leona, the guy who wanted to cheat on her but couldn't even get a look from Leona. She recalled him telling her that she was very wrong, while holding a bouquet of flowers in his hand. Then Nathan swore a lot that he would absolutely always be by her side. The guy promised that he would not leave her, even if the whole world turned its back on her. The girl knew that these were empty words, not spoken seriously, but at some point they consoled her. It was perfect for alleviating the feeling of loneliness without any commitment. Nathan asks the girl if she was hurt, because she had to go through a lot. After a short silence, Roberta asks without interest what he means, having long known the answer. The guy reports that this happened when she lost her wings, blushing deeply. He suddenly starts to get confused in his words, after which he covers his mouth with his hand. He wonders why he starts to talk incoherently when he is such a great speaker. Nathan suddenly admits that he is actually one of her admirers. Roberta looks at him questioningly, not understanding at all what he is talking about, since she is not a celebrity or anything like that. The guy indignantly asks what she means when she says she is not a celebrity. He reports that even though she has been labeled as a weirdo, she is always true to her cause. He notes that she always gives shelter to homeless dogs and is very concerned about the labor rights of ordinary citizens. The bard notes that the young lady is known as a dark angel who brings a beneficial influence. He says her angelic actions made him realize that he doesn't care about stray dogs and social problems and is just obsessed with women. Suddenly, the guy takes out a guitar, which he brought with him especially for this meeting. He asks her to listen to a song he wrote for her as a sign of his transformation. Nathan notes that he knows he's being a little rude because he's in a hurry. Roberta looks at him in shock, realizing that she can't say a word about this. It was quite a surprise to her that he had changed so much since their last meeting. The bard suddenly looks up and smiles when he sees her in front of him. The girl's face after this becomes even more surprised by what is happening, because before he was completely different. Claire remarks that her mistress must have gotten too carried away. She couldn't believe that there were 3 of them spinning around her, which was a little abnormal because it was already a love square. She asks excitedly if this will lead to any disaster. Elrom says that everything is correct, and in her opinion, it will still lead to a disaster. Suddenly, at the end of her sentence, she points out that this is not the first time this has happened. Claire looks at her questioningly, not at all understanding what she means. The woman sitting opposite suddenly asks if she really wants to save the young lady. She says that she loved her young woman much more than she loved hers, and that is why she wanted to change her tragic fate. Gravia walks slowly down the street while people around her talk about how the extraordinary sacred relic is now back in stock in many stores. A child passes by her and asks her to buy an apple, but she just ignores him. Elrom rises up, talking to his interlocutor, when suddenly he hears his name. She sees a young lady not far from her, saying that she promised that she would step away for a minute, but several hours have already passed. Gravia reports that Mom has disappeared again and Dad is extremely angry. The young lady grabs the maid by the sleeve and asks how she could leave her alone. Very angry, the girl suddenly hugs her surprised maid. She asks if it is because she got angry yesterday, after which she asks for forgiveness and begs her not to leave her. The lady begins to ask for forgiveness again and again without stopping. Elrom gently pushes the young lady away, trying to bring her to her senses. She gently cups her cheeks as she continues to beg for forgiveness. The maid asks her to finally calm down and stop doing this. She suggests that she just look into her eyes to begin with. After that, finally, she says that she should start breathing with her. Suddenly, the maid turns around and tells Claire that she will help her save the young lady. She adds that unfortunately, she cannot guarantee the result. She said there was a chance her intervention could save something, but unfortunately, it can also make it so that there is no chance of recovery. A child selling apples suddenly approaches a strange man. Meanwhile, the elder announces that the sacred relic that can guarantee happiness is finally in stock. He, interested in his papers, does not notice the child and they collide. A large amount of paper and ripe apples fly in all directions. Elrom tells his interlocutor that this is exactly what it means to play with fate. The child with the already empty basket is suddenly picked up by the Archduke, who appears from somewhere. Gerald tells the man it's good that he works hard on St. Aubenray's day. He adds that it is impossible to harm other innocent people at the same time. St. Alban Rees Day is the feast day of the valiant defender of Nuremberg in the fight against demons, and on this day people give sacred relics to their loved one, and a grand festival is held for 3 days. He notes that in just 10 minutes, he has already seen 50 of these leaflets. The guy reads on the leaflet that the relic will melt the heart of any girl. He suddenly notices that there is no price on the leaflet, after which he asks how much it costs. The guy knew that people were taking advantage of those who wanted to buy these sacred relics, and were greatly increasing the price. The man suddenly apologized to the little girl, then asked if she was the daughter of the fruit vendor from the shop across the street. Meanwhile, the Duke asks for the price of the goods for the umpteenth time, still not letting up. Sir Ori points out that if the guy wants to give the relic to Lady Bernadette, he shouldn't do it. This advice attracts the Duke's attention greatly, and he turns towards the voice. The advisor says that he is afraid that the girl will not like such a gift. Sir Ori says he will have all the leaves collected and put away immediately. Gerald thinks hard about the words he just heard from his advisor. He remembers the girl saying that she was actually more interested in his taste. Roberta said that the Duke was not a caring person, and that stories of traumatized women did not bother him. He thinks that there is absolutely no way that she didn't like it. The guy remembers her telling him that he is beautiful just the way he is. Then the girl added that he could eventually find whatever he wanted. The man suddenly starts talking about something, which distracts the Duke from his thoughts. Sir Ori asks if he really thinks people take these leaflets because they like them, and then reveals that they end up throwing them away anyway. The man begins to deny this by saying that people want to acquire one of the sacred relics, and their quality is something to be proud of. The piece of paper said that the relics could relieve anxiety. Moreover, besides this, they were able to heal a wounded heart. It asked if there were people who did not want to find peace. The boy remembers the day when Roberta was anxiously scratching her neck out of fear. He suddenly quickly lifts one of the leaves lying on the ground. Men continue to argue that such a gift can be inconsiderate if the recipient's feelings are not taken into account. The Duke is accompanied by the voices of those disputing, who ask who he is to give someone peace, saying that it is only discomfort. Gerald carefully tries to fold the piece of paper and take it with him. Sir Ori asks what will happen if a pregnant woman steps on it and slips. He also adds that the child may stumble while learning to walk, and the person standing opposite asks why go so far. Suddenly, their dialogue is interrupted by this girl, asking them to take the apple. She says that after they accept the gift, they can apologize to each other. The child says he understands that Sir Ori is angry because his wife is pregnant, and as the time approaches, the man worries about the growing results of the competition. The girl notes that, besides, they haven't had lunch, which is why they're angry. She also hands the Duke a fresh apple and says that everything will be fine. Gerald, smiling, remarks that she has outstanding sales skills. The child looks at him enthusiastically and says that apples are the most popular and most consumed fruit, but not everyone necessarily likes them. According to her, this does not mean at all that they can be replaced with pies. That's why she carefully studies her potential clients. The child watches with satisfaction as 2 men who had previously been in conflict with each other make peace. The girl says that sometimes, even when a person shouldn't apologize, it is necessary to do so. The Duke realizes that it is a matter of time, remembering their very first night. The bard remarks that he is sorry that they have to say goodbye already. The guy suddenly suggests comparing the sizes of their hands one last time. Roberta says she doesn't quite understand, but still agrees. Nathan blushes deeply, noticing how small her hand is. The girl looks at him with displeasure, not understanding how to react. The bard says that the song he sang today was prepared in a hurry. He admits that he regrets that he was not able to demonstrate all his skills. Finally, Nathan wishes her luck, while Roberta looks at him indifferently. She realized that she had been behaving quite strangely throughout the entire meeting. But, unfortunately, she did not understand how to behave with a person who had changed so much. The guy says that he really wants everything that is weighing on Roberta today to disappear. He explains that even though they met today, she seems so puzzled that it makes him feel uneasy. Nathan reports that during their conversation, she had a very worried expression on her face and kept staring into space. The guy says that these are the kind of fans who come back to their idols and think they are wonderful, and also worry about them a lot, and sympathize with even ordinary things. The girl again does not understand what is happening, and mentally asks him to stop saying such kind words, because she just wanted to use him to get rid of loneliness. The guy asks to look at her hand and is surprised at how thin his wrist is, after which he remarks that she is in excellent health. He asks her not to go on a diet and not to lose a single gram when she leaves. Roberta says that the idol, who the guy came to meet and prepared a song for, abruptly ended the meeting, claiming that he had business, and then asked if she was cruel. Claire stands not far from her bed, surprised by what she just heard. The maid says she has no idea what they are talking about now. The young lady reports that she seems to be gradually sliding into an abyss. She says it bothers her like crazy, which makes Claire think. The maid suddenly announces that she was recently recommended a book, but she doesn't know what it means. She says it's a love story, which arouses her mistress's interest. The book was about people who are destined to be together, but fate takes a strange turn when the main character's friend is grabbed in the middle.